Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to talk about something very weird. And this kind of goes back to a video I did a few months ago involving a studio that was attempting to, or is attempting to, make a film with an actor who has had James Dean's face CGI'd onto his body so that they can say that James Dean is starring in the movie, despite the fact he's been dead for 65 years. Um, we're getting news today that there is going to be apparently the first film starring an actual artificial intelligence robot. And this isn't like a Johnny Five type of deal where it's just an animatronic that somebody controls and there's a voice overlay on it, so it sounds like the creature, the not creature, the robot itself is talking. Apparently, this machine that is was created in Japan. And I'm not sure if this is actually a Japanese movie per se that it's going to be. And the movie title is actually called B. It's just the letter B, a lowercase b specifically. Um, but the film is basically about a scientist that helps an artificial robot, an intelligent robot, escape a facility after something involving DNA. Basically, they don't really give too many details on the plot, so I'm not really going to go into that. And the focus of this isn't really on the movie itself. It's more about this kind of increasing and odd trend in Hollywood that they seem to want to go to. Now, um, the idea that I kind of brought up in the James Dean video kind of carries over to this with the idea that Hollywood is increasingly becoming more and more soulless with the films that it makes, especially the studio films. Now you look at stuff like Marvel movies where they're vetted and the scripts are gone over a million times, and the stories don't take you anywhere edgy. They're set to a certain formula that they believe audiences will come to, and there's certain things that are have the creativity sucked out of them to an extent. This is taking that to an even further extent. I think even further than the James Dean thing, because here's the other problem that you have. This actress, who apparently, I shouldn't say actress, this robot who is being touted as an actress, is called Erica. And apparently she's also playing the same character in the film. I don't even know why they bother calling this thing an actress, because it's not an actress. All it is just, it's a robot that they programmed to do certain things. And here's the other thing, is that I think people get kind of the misconception about how machines tend to learn, even artificial intelligence. And the idea is basically that with regular machines, or with regular computerized machines, you program the machine and the machine does what is programmed. If there is a mistake with the machine, then that is a mistake that the human operator has inputted into the machine. So if let's say you had a robot that was designed to pick something up and put it in a different spot, and the guy programs it and it picks it up and it puts it in the wrong spot, it doesn't put it in the correct spot for whatever reason, then that's a problem with the robot's programming, and that is a problem with the person that programmed it. With AI, it is different, where it is a robot that has an algorithm that learns. It learns over time, and it stores and can remember information. So it basically has a memory bank that it can draw from, kind of like a random access memory from a computer, a little bit, but very, very different in terms of the way it functions. Um, but what we have here is that apparently this robot has some form of artificial intelligence in it, and they have supposedly been teaching it how to act, which again, I don't. The terms that they use in this article, which I'm reading it off of Screen Rant, the terms that they use in this article, and I'm assuming they're terms that were described to them by whoever broke this story initially, is they're terms for a human. This is not a human. This is a robot. Okay, it's different than talking about. You don't train a robot how to act. You just program it, and then you do whatever. You can teaching a robot is different than teaching a person. Let's put it that way. Even with an AI, it's different. They even said, "Oh, we got to work on the timing, and we had to work on this and that." And they treat, when you picture it in your head, it kind of sounds a bit like they're actually training it's contemporary training, like what you would do with a normal actor. And no, it is not. It is something completely different. And this creates a very, very bad precedent for Hollywood in terms of a creativity standpoint. And like I said, I went over this before, but I'm going to reiterate some things. So right now, what is being speculated is the idea that, okay, so let's say this movie goes forward, it's a success, this works, this robot is adequate at acting its role or whatever they've decided to teach it, and they continue on from this. Now, the problem we have is that as these things keep getting better and better and more realistic, and they can move and act and be like regular people, how long until you actually phase out the contemporary actor itself? And that's a problem. That is a very, very scary problem from a creative standpoint because no, this is the thing is that when you look at how a movie is made and how a scene is made, a lot of the times actors have input on what happens with their characters. You're not going to have an argument. A director is not going to have an argument with a robot. I don't think that's even possible at this point to have a legitimate argument with a robot. Because if the robot just pisses him off, he could just turn the thing off and say, "Program it not to do that." And the director might be wrong in that scenario. You know, he might want something that maybe is not right for the scene, or maybe it doesn't feel organic, or it could even ruin the whole movie for all we know. But we've had cases with well seasoned actors kind of either ad libbing or taking it to another level, or doing something, or having input on scenes that they're in to change the movie and ultimately make it better. And that's part of the creative process, is that collaboration between actors and directors and anybody else that's involved in the creativity of the film. Um, how long before we have a situation where we have a machine that's writing a script for us? You have a machine that writes the script. You got a machine that controls the camera. You got machines for actors. You got machines that take the place of all of the set crews. The only thing that you really have a human doing is scouting locations, and even then, they could probably do that from an office anywhere in LA. And then you could just send the autonomous crew in an autonomous plane to go film the movie. We could get to the point where that ridiculousness is possible. Obviously, that would be very, very, very far down the road if this continues down that particular path of hell. But if it does, that's the death of creativity in film. That is legitimately the death of creativity in film, because you have removed the human element. And like I said, as you remove the human element from film, it degrades what it is. It degrades what it can be. And this is what we have now, is that this is another thing that's just furthering that degradation. Where, look, I get the idea of maybe having a robot in a film or something like that. It's been done millions of times before. Sometimes it's a guy in a goofy suit. Sometimes it's an actual animatronic that's programmed, and like I said, they overlay audio over it, like something like a short circuit. Or like I said before, you can have a guy in a suit like Robin Williams in Bicentennial Man or something like that. It's been done before, and it's been done believably. So I have no idea why you would do this, other than the fact that studios think they can save money on it. Because here's the other thing, is that let's say you have a bunch of robots instead of actual actors. You don't have to pay them. They're not paid. They're just machines. You just program them and put them out there, and I guess you would have to pay a technician to take care of them, or maybe several technicians. But I think that would be a lot less costly than paying millions upon millions of dollars to actors, high-end actors, to be in movies, if you're talking about it from a financial sense. But again, that's what Hollywood will go for, because they will be willing to pinch pennies when they can. We've seen it with movies before. We're like, okay, we don't think this movie's going to do well. Cut the budget. And then they ruin a film that may have been good for all we know. Sometimes those situations are kind of cut and dry, but, sometimes they're not. And this just adds to that idea that they are just cheapening film as an art form, and it's disgusting, to be honest. If they actually do decide to go down this route and this becomes more common. They also listed, apparently, a casting agency last year hired an all CGI actress. I shit you not. And this actress was signed. It's a CAA casting, and her name is Michaela, and I don't understand. I'm assuming they have some kind of voice work being done where she's voiced by a human, and it's not just some kind of synthesized weird type of voice that comes out of a computer or some shit. But she's been signed to a casting agency, so they own an entirely CGI person. They own the likeness of them, and they have the ability to license that person out to film studios in order for her to be in films. An entirely CGI human being, something that doesn't exist, and yet it's being used as an actress, which again I think that degrades a bit. Now I'm not advocating for necessarily actors, because there are a lot of actors who they don't deserve the money that they're paid to do what they do in some cases. But in this scenario, I mean, the more you take away the human element, the less this the less this is art. The more this is just horrible degradation of what Hollywood is supposed to be. And this is what we're moving towards. This is what we've been moving towards for probably the last at least 20 years, maybe more, where Hollywood has continued to play it very, very safe with the stuff that they've been creating. They haven't, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are still many studios that take risks. There are still many studios that operate how I guess they're supposed to operate. I guess I put supposed to in parentheses, but they operate like actual movie studios as opposed to a video game development house. Which again, that's not a knock to video games, but it's in the sense of like there's a difference between a video game and a movie. Okay, you don't want one to be the other. Otherwise, you kind of run into some weird territory. But this is just something that it perplexes me why there's not more pushback to this. I know there was a bit of pushback to the James Dean thing because it was James Dean that was being brought back for the film. I know Chris Evans had some harsh words to say about it on Twitter, and some other people had other actors had very bad things to say about it, which I don't blame them for doing, because that is a threat to your industry basically. I think the Screen Actors Guild. I don't know if they responded to it actually to the James Dean thing. They may have had some kind of a press statement for it, but I'm surprised the Screen Actors Guild is not completely against this. I'm surprised many of the Hollywood unions are not against this. I think the reason why you're going to see maybe a lot of pushback to this in the future, if it gets larger scaled, is because of the Hollywood unions. And usually I'm not a proponent for certain unions, for any unions really, but in this case, they might be the last line of defense to stop this kind of thing, because they need to keep the people that are under their umbrella to employed. That's kind of the whole idea. And if Hollywood studios are saying screw you, we're not going to use your actors, then I would assume that they would probably try to cooperate with some of the other unions in Hollywood and try and get studios strikes and things like that. But ultimately, I think this is going to be something that a lot of bigger studios are going to have available to them. The Disneys, the Paramounts, the Universals, the Lionsgates, those type of studios. But I don't think this is necessarily going to be something that's going to be regular for smaller studios. Definitely not indie studios. They're not going to have the money to do that. But in order to actually buy the robots, I mean, unless, which this would be even weirder, is if casting agencies started getting a hold of these robots and just licensing them out to movie studios, like they're doing with this other CGI character. That's another possibility, which I think may be more likely, because the casting studios apparently are perfectly willing to sign these non-people on as actors and actresses. At least currently anyway. I'm assuming they'll get some pushback eventually, but this is just like a whole like tangent of weird that I don't think should exist. And like I said, I think it degrades the film industry greatly by having it. But I want to know what you think. Do you think that it's a good idea to kind of bring this in? Do you think that maybe this is kind of a good checks and balances system for existing actors in Hollywood to kind of make them raise their game? Or do you think that this is kind of just more of a degradation of the art form of film, like I do? As usual, put your thoughts in the comments below. I like to read them. Hit the bell for notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?